We'll just hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adam.
I'm Jake.
And we are the Hammered Brothers. And today we have a little bit of beer that we're drinking. What have we got here, Jake?
This is Rogue. It is called Bat Squatch.
It's a hazy IPA. Tastes a lot like orange juice, which suits me just fine. That's a perfectly acceptable type of drink for this particular individual. So what is our topic for the day, Jake?
Today we are looking at Game of Thrones.
That's right. It is a shameless cash-in on the Game of Thrones mania that is out there in the media today.
Yes, sir.
So at this point of this recording, the show has concluded. It has concluded.
Yes, at long last. The final season is over, and good riddance, I say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. It's been steadily declining ever since. I would say the fifth season is probably when we started to see the biggest noticeable decrease in quality overall. I think that it had started to slide ahead of that a little bit, but this final season really did not lend itself well to a well-written, well-thought-out. It just did not live up to its predecessors in any way, shape, or form, which is really and truly unfortunate.
Yeah, I completely agree. They spent all the money they could on the effects, the cinematography. Everything looked great. It felt like the actors were invested, but the story,
it's not even necessarily just the story. It's the writing.
The writing.
Yes. Writing. I had a lot less of a problem with the way things turned out than just with how the events played out in many ways, and you never really want to know how the sausage is made necessarily, right. But there's a lot of things that went into the development of the final season of Game of Thrones that were contributions, shall we say, to the degradation of quality.
Yeah, concerning things. And yeah, we can't help but speculate that if things had been approached differently, you could have hit the same story beats and had this be just maybe not a perfect ending to the series, but it could have been good.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the show has always been it has always been one that does not shy away from things that are not necessarily unexpected, but not to turn out the way you would normally see them, not the typical fairy tale ending.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get the perfect conclusion to every character that you might hope for a lot of the time in Game of Thrones, and that's fine. That feels real and natural in some ways.
Yeah. I'm. It's interesting. Just early on in the show, the things that, dare I say the word subversion, is a word that is tossed around quite casually these days, thanks to other franchises that have given that a bad name. Mm-hmm. Now, subversion, I don't think subversion is a dirty word, although it's becoming one, which is very unfortunate.
Yes, sir.
The idea of having a plot twist or something unexpected happen, but then when you go back and you can see the clues, you can see all that stuff kind of leading into it, is perfectly acceptable. Mm-hmm. Examples of where that has worked well in the past, I would say Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. Luke, I am your father.
Right.
He doesn't actually say, Luke, I am your father, by the way. Anyway, so that's one area that it worked out exceptionally well, although even there was not a lot of indicator upstream of that. I don't know if George Lucas had any what am I thinking? Not indication, but inclination. There we go. Inclination to have Darth Vader be Luke Skywalker's father when he wrote A New Hope. I kind of doubt it.
Yeah, agreed.
Another good example of what you could call subversion or just simply a plot twist is Fight Club. Another excellent movie where, when you find out, spoilers for Fight Club, just in case. I mean, this is a spoiler cast anyway, so we're going to spoil all kinds of fun stuff. But when you find out that Brad Pitt and Edward Norton's character are the same person, that's like that was quite the ride for me.
Yeah.
That was a fun and interesting turn of events in an otherwise what had up to that point been kind of an interesting and weird movie. And it was good. That's a good movie. We can talk about Fight Club someday.
Oh, that could be fun. Yeah.
Not in depth on this particular episode because we're going to continue down our
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. But
So obviously the other side of this is subversion for subversion's sake. Seems to be becoming a trend in franchises, and one with some really negative consequences, I would say. So naturally, the most recent example of this is Star Wars. A whole movie of nothing but subversion just to stick it to the fans, apparently, if you ask the director.
what a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to just thumb my nose at the fans the whole time, and we're going to take their money, and ha, 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 fuck you. So, yeah, that's not how you want to necessarily treat your audience. Not only that, but it treats your audience like they're idiots.
Right, yeah.
And now, Jake, you have not read the Game of Thrones books. I've been through
Correct.
the books themselves. I've also been through The World of Ice and Fire, the book. I thought that was very interesting. I've listened to a lot of other YouTube channels where they've talked a lot about Game of Thrones, the lore in depth, a lot of the other stuff. I've read the Dunk and Egg books. Those have been really fun. And so there's a lot going on. There's a lot George R.R. Martin does with people and places and lineages and prophecies and all that kind of stuff. And not only that, he goes a step further and basically tells you, well, prophecy's kind of a bitch. You know, it's not something you want to necessarily be the person of prophecy. Not only that, but he also goes out of his way in the book to tell you that prophecies are not always something that is going to come true, or if it does come true, it's not going to come true in the way that you necessarily want it to. So the idea that you've got all of this foreshadowing and whatever the case might be, and then ends up doing something that you don't expect, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
Now, why do you suppose I've gone off on that tangent? Well, there was a pretty major shift this season for a particular character. I know that it's got a number of women out there pretty upset about it. A number of people.
I can't imagine why.
People who were smart enough to name their daughters.
Oh my goodness, yes. Quality. Or get her likeness tattooed upon them.
Oh, jeez.
These types of things.
A cautionary tale to feminists, if I do say so myself.
Yeah.
But, and like we were saying, subversion is not a bad thing. And there have been many times throughout the series, throughout the books, throughout all of the ancillary supporting material that basically says when you have a Targaryen, you are rolling the dice. So it is not necessarily a unexpected turn of events to have a Targaryen, any Targaryen, have some pretty big, shifts throughout their just personality shifts in general, I guess, throughout the course of their life or career or whatever the case might be.
Right.
The problem, again, was with the writing.
Yes.
So,
It's like, I'm not even sure where to begin with this. Because obviously you don't want to telegraph that this is going to happen too heavily. But there should have been a hint somewhere, certainly, previously. And I guess I don't know how deep into spoilers we want to get right this second.
Go for it. Spoilers, spoilers, spoilers. Lots of spoilers incoming.
So Daenerys, she never seemed to have any inkling that she would kill innocents for any reason. And then she just destroys a whole city out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I get that she's really upset, like in general at the time, but there doesn't seem to be any particular reason that she takes it out specifically on the civilians of the city at the time that she does. I think that's what got me the most.
Yeah. It was a decision in the moment that didn't have adequate lead up to seeing that departure of character.
Yeah.
And again, there are ways that could have been written that would have made it more believable and more heartbreaking. But instead, we're going to have what we have.
Yep, we got what we got. There are some just such ridiculously simple things that would have made it more palatable in the moment. The most obvious one to me is her whole deal here is that she's furious at Cersei and Cersei's followers by extension. Wouldn't it make sense to start with the object of your rage rather
so.
than their city?
Yeah.
I mean, she knows that, yeah, technically the people are following her in this moment, but we all know that a random peasant has little to do with the goings-on politically in this type of setting. And Daenerys knows that damn well as well. Mm-hmm. So I could understand if she went directly for Cersei, murders her, burns down the whole keep, whatever it is, and then as a result of that bloodlust that she got from finally taking out the object of her rage, she then keeps going. I could have understood that. It wouldn't have been perfect, but it would have been better.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a number of ways where they could have even made it far more believable and made her more sympathetic even. Mm-hmm. And when I say her, I mean Daenerys. I mean, in the preceding episodes, they made a big point out of pointing out that Cersei was bringing these civilians into the Red Keep, and she was using them as human shields and all that kind of stuff. And that's all very good. That's good setup. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. The way that they could have gone into that further is, they had all these, ballistas, these scorpions, whatever, and they were they were their super weapons to guard against the dragons. Yeah, which was also terrible writing, by the way, because those things were utterly useless when it actually mattered, and when
except when they wanted to subvert our expectations and kill one in the previous episode.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, the first 3 shots strike their target perfectly.
Yeah.
From God knows how far away.
Yeah. So if they could have used, and this would have actually made Cersei look like a much more intelligent person as well, but they could have hidden these scorpions across the city, right? I mean, they did this much to the same way that they made a point of showing that there was all these caches of wildfire throughout the city as well, because as the city was burning, boom, green, oh, okay, well, there we go. And they could have hidden these ballistas or these scorpions out amongst the populace, and then they could have just popped up and they start firing at the dragon and stuff like that. And then Daenerys has to go and destroy that one, and maybe there's a ton of collateral damage or whatever the case is, and she just destroys all of the civilians around it. Again, it would have made Cersei look really smart, knowing that she's killing all of these innocent people just to get this one little, and whatever it is. And they could have done that over and over, and ultimately, basically, she would have destroyed the city anyway. Mm-hmm. And, and like you say, she could have got messier and messier as more of these things kind of popped up in a guerrilla warfare kind of way, to the point where she did basically destroy the city. Mm-hmm. And Jon and Tyrion could have been looking around like, this is insanity. This is absolute insanity. And it would have been much the same thing. It would have been more believable from the character perspective of Daenerys and the way we've seen her behave in previous seasons. She would have certainly felt justified in doing all of those things, while she was not necessarily the person on the ground seeing all of the collateral damage.
Right. Yeah, and this kind of plays into, in the actual final episode, with, Jon trying to reason with her before, offing her.
Yeah, for all of that, 30 seconds.
But yeah, the things that she was saying in that scene that made it obvious that she was beyond bringing back or beyond redemption, those are the kinds of things that, yes, made her a terrible dictator, but at the same time, in the previous episode, she was just completely insane. What she was doing was not serving any greater purpose. Yeah. She was just murdering because she felt like it.
Yeah, she just wanted to burn the city to the ground, and they made that abundantly clear in the previous episode. Oh, well, my friend got killed. Oh, yeah. That was convenient. And so now I'm angry, and I just want to torch the entire city because reasons.
Yeah, it didn't follow with the actual reason she was turning into a terrible dictator. Mm-hmm. She just did something completely insane.
Yeah. I mean, when they had that little exchange, her and Jon, in the very last episode, right before her demise. It was a really good exchange, and it was a very
was.
short exchange. And I think that it
crazy
needed
short.
that the idea of what she was saying needed to be spread out over the course of certainly not just the final season here, but we should have seen that coming through her character a little bit more in earlier seasons, and it's been a while since I've been through the whole series.
Yeah, and that's a struggle for me too. But it feels like in earlier seasons there was a lot more discussion, a lot more talk of the philosophy about why people are doing the things that they're doing. We didn't ever get any of that with Jon and Daenerys. It's always just, you are my queen, I love you, and that's
Because I've known you for like 2 days.
that's like all we got from them.
That the idea that they were so in love and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, the Jon Snow, when he had legitimate feelings for Ygritte, the wildling, that was played nicely. Like they were adversaries. They got closer, and then they were together. And that was a genuinely good exchange, good emotional, investment on both sides of that kind of thing. That was legitimate. And then John goes and they try to kind of do the same thing, I guess. I'm not...
Tried, I guess.
It failed in every respect. It failed to work. So, and the love story felt so ham-handed. It was so clumsy.
So shallow.
It was, whereas every step of the way, John was still part of the Night's Watch, and he was still trying to take his vows seriously. I shall father no children, I shall take no wives, and so forth. And so he felt something about that. He had these feelings, but he felt like he had to resist them, and so there was that as a dynamic. And then when he leaves the Night's Watch behind and all that, it changes the dynamic. But then he knows. I mean, he's introduced into Daenerys. I mean, is it even 3 episodes? And then they hop right into bed together. And for the most of those
Sounds
3
right.
episodes, they don't even like each other. At least it doesn't seem like they like each other. So I don't know what that's all about, but
Yeah, I don't know. It's crummy because I feel like I should revisit some of this to feel more confident in the things that I'm saying. But honestly, with the way the series ended, I don't have an interest in rewatching this series ever again. I don't think.
the things that the show was really good at was the character interactions. And even right at the end, now I think you've got a little different opinion than I do, but I really enjoyed the exchanges between Tyrion and Jaime when he sets him free, the exchanges between Tyrion and Jaime earlier in season 8, but certainly when Tyrion goes and finds the bodies of Jaime and Cersei at the end. I thought that was exceptionally well acted. It felt emotionally invested because you cared about the relationships between those characters and all that kind of stuff. That all worked really, really well for me. Unfortunately, that was like 5 minutes of what was an hour and a half episode.
Yeah, I mean, so Tyrion and Jaime, before he sets Jaime free to go and try to save Cersei, good scene. I felt a lot of the emotion. Jaime's character had been like assassinated by this point.
Yes.
So that kind of undercut a lot of it for me. I think that was my biggest problem with it. The fact that he was going back to Cersei at all, I think was it completely destroyed all of the progression his character had made over the course of the entire series, honestly.
Yeah. And he did go back to Cersei several times throughout the series, so it wasn't that it was unbelievable. It's just that it was in many ways heartbreaking to see somebody who just could not. What it amounts to is that he just had no growth as a character.
No, yeah. At the end of the day, he literally did not change.
Yeah, he was virtually the same piece of shit that he was right from the start. He was certainly a lot less arrogant after they chopped his hand off,
Yeah.
but. So he had a tiny bit of an arc, but not nearly as much as he deserved, I think. So one of the other things I wanted to get your read on, So this season was only 6 episodes,
Right.
and 2 of those episodes were virtually entire battle sequences.
True.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, not good. I could have felt really good about that. The problem with both of these battle sequences is that there was really nothing to them. It was just a series of things happening. In neither case were we shown any type of strategy or planning.
Quite the
Certainly
opposite.
none of that, and certainly no execution of any of those things. That's what would have made those 2 episodes really fascinating, is if we were seeing the strategies of both sides playing out against each other and some actual like tactical stuff going on that was being put into effect. In neither case did we get that.
No.
I mean, let's be perfectly honest. In the first fight, I guess
long
the
night.
long night, yes. Only one person had to be there at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Apparently.
apparently, just
And we
had
can
to
talk
be-
about that too.
We can,
But we'll get to that.
yeah. So Arya was the only person necessary to that fight at the end of the day. No one else did anything that made a difference in the entire battle. And then in the second fight, the attack on King's Landing, Daenerys literally won the battle on her dragon. No one else had to be present for her to do what she did and win the entire fight, the whole day. Absolutely no one else was necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, we were treated to these gigantic hour and a half long orgies of cinematic action, I guess.
Yeah, it's just fights happening, but none of it progressed the battle in any meaningful way
Yeah.
until the final moment in the first one, and then it was literally just Daenerys burning down all the fortifications in the second one, and then proceeding to kill everyone in
Yeah.
the city.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that the strategy part is one of the big problems. I totally agree. I was thinking about this not that long ago. In the Ocean's movies, like Ocean 11, they don't tell you what the strategy is necessarily going into the tail end of those movies.
You see a lot of the components being worked on.
Yeah. But then as it goes through and you start to see that, oh, this was part of a strategy all along, that's a lot of fun. And that's really interesting. And it would have been interesting to see a battle planned and executed and see if they could actually get it to work. And now things don't always have to go perfectly according to plan.
They shouldn't, in fact. That's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, yeah. But the fact that they had virtually no plan.
Yeah.
They had
In either
haphazard fortifications at Winterfell and just the worst possible placement of it's like
Of troops.
Who planned that?
Yeah, that's another thing. It's like this series has always had a very high level of realism when it comes to a great many things. And yeah, we didn't get a lot of very grand battles in the first many seasons. But you always had this feeling that this is all very realistic. You got your smattering of magic and dragons here and there, but the world was always very believable. So to see these big epic fights go down with the most backwards possible strategy, let's put all of our people in front of the fortified city.
Yeah.
Okay.
In front of the trench with the fire in it.
Yeah, in front of...
Let's put our ballistas way up there too.
Yeah.
That was a great idea.
Brilliant planning. And absolutely no reference of why that choice was made. I could have almost bought, if anyone, it could have been a throwaway line. We don't have enough room inside the walls for the entire army.
That's all it would have taken.
But that was never said. Not set up in any way. It's like if they had had a scene where they were talking about how we're literally going to have to put our forces outside the wall until we are whittled down enough that we can draw them back in so we can actually fit. That would have been interesting, that they had to do that because they just didn't have a big enough wall to get everyone behind.
Yeah, but they had all these soldiers, all these fortifications. I don't know. It seemed awfully weird. It's just, and another part of it that I don't like is, again, the show's excelled at the character interactions. That has always been the bread and butter of the show, is the dialogue and the character interactions. And oddly enough, the writing was the strength of the show for many years. And instead of getting any of those really well-written scenes, we end up with action schlock. Like the end of any big budget blockbuster movie. I can't think of anything more boring than I'll use Avengers Infinity War, which is an otherwise great movie. But Infinity War had like a 45-minute battle scene that was just CGI animal thing, monstery things or whatever, just duking it out with the good guys who were also riding around on CGI animals. And it was just a bunch of stupid nonsense that you didn't need to be there and just made the movie 45 minutes longer than it had to be. It didn't do anything. You know what? A fight scene is super easy. All you need is to do it the same way the first Matrix movie did it. When you have Neo face off against Agent Smith, you are emotionally invested in that scene. Now you can take that and you can contrast that with, take your pick of any modern blockbuster. You can even go back 10 years to the Lord of the Rings movies, where by the time you get to the Return of the King, it's just action schlock. And it's not even action schlock, it's bad action schlock. And we'll get to the Lord of the Rings movies at some point as well.
At some point, sure.
Oh, boy. I mean, because in many ways, the Lord of the Rings movies suffered the same thing. Pretty strong first movie, a little bit weaker second movie, terrible third movie. And Game of Thrones, super strong, started out great. First three seasons are wonderful. Fourth season, still pretty good. Fifth season, starting to see the cracks. Sixth, seventh, really starting to go downhill. And now we're left with season 8, and it was a disaster. So, I feel like we should talk a little bit about Arya killing the Night King.
Sure. I have no problem with her being the person who killed the Night King. I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't really either, but the bigger problem was not necessarily with her committing the final act, but the fact that Jon Snow was nowhere to be found.
Right.
And throughout 8 seasons, he was the Watcher on the Wall. His goal in life, his entire meaning as a character was to confront and defeat the Night King. And
what did he do to that end in the end?
He did jack shit.
Absolutely nothing. That's right. What did them going beyond the wall and grabbing a random White Walker, bringing it back, and how did that contribute to them defeating the Night King?
Apparently, it didn't do anything.
It had the opposite effect.
Did Daenerys? Oh, jeez. Yeah, and here we just see the sloppiness in the writing, because did Daenerys even need to be there? What was the purpose of Daenerys being at the Battle of Winterfell during the Long Night? Really? Did she do anything? So let's go back to the previous season. What good did Daenerys do there? Oh, well, she took 3 dragons north of the wall, and she handed one of them to the Night King. He promptly used that to bring down the wall. Also a terrible, terrible scene.
Yes.
And then what did she do at Winterfell? Oh, well, she flew around on a dragon, and she got herself nearly killed. She got Jorah killed, for sure.
Yeah.
She got most of her army killed. Both the Dothraki and the Unsullied took huge casualties. And then at the end of the day, who killed the Night King?
Yeah, it was Arya Stark.
Arya Stark. So what exactly was the purpose of having Daenerys even present?
So on the other side of this, of course, there's the argument that, well, this is how things happen. Things don't go according to plan, certainly. The problem is that I don't have any inkling as to how the White Walkers would have gotten past the wall if they hadn't made these mistakes.
Yeah. And and there are hints in the books. I hate to compare the show to the books because they are very different things in many, many ways. But there are things in the books that are bringing up. And the books are in many ways a lot more magical. Now, they still have a very tight control over how much magic is in the world, but it is significantly less magical in some ways than what we're seeing. No, wait. More magical
in the books?
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, more magical in the books than what we have seen in the shows. And that has actually worked to the show's favor. I think that's to the show's credit.
I think so.
That it keeps it more grounded, and you're not seeing sorcery in the traditional kind of comic book or video game sense, that's perfectly fine. But I think that what is going to happen, I hope that what happens in the book is a lot more interesting than just, oh, I'm going to take this dragon north of the wall. He's going to get killed because apparently the Night King can throw a spear, half mile into the sky, which is another problematic scene, to say the least. And then reanimate that, and I'm going to use that to bring down the wall because apparently, and then also I'm also invulnerable to dragonfire for whatever reason.
Oh yeah, and do you remember those massive chains they used to get the dragon?
Yeah, where
out
did
of
those
the
come
water?
from?
I was like, how many hundreds of thousands of White Walkers did it take to carry those chains in the first place?
Yeah.
I didn't see any wagons or anything.
Where did they come from? How many did they walk underneath the ocean in their deadness and pull up chains from shipwrecks?
They've always got 10,000 or so White Walkers just carrying giant chains,
just
in case. Just in case. They're just at the back. You don't see them much. But they've always got those chains
That's
with.
right. It's just don't think about it too
Don't
much.
think about it.
Yeah, it's not worth thinking about that hard. It's not.
Quality stuff. Quality writing.
Yuck.
But where was I going with that originally? I guess just that the whole poetic justice of Jon Snow killing the Night King, it would have made a good story, but Game of Thrones has never been about people getting exactly what you expect out of a story.
That's fair. That's
so
fair.
I can see the other side of this. But then you would say that, okay, Jon killing the Night King would have just been to serve the story, to make it a good story. But then you can make the same argument for things like them going over the wall with the dragons and the dragon dying so that they could get past the wall. It only happened to serve the story.
Yeah.
Because they couldn't think of another better way to get them past the wall.
Yeah.
So then you have, from there, I was going somewhere with this, I promise.
Fair. That's fair, yeah. Well, I'll keep going. Yeah, so I guess, again, because of the lack of strategy that we saw during the Long Night episode, again, if Jon just would have felt useful at all, because this goes back all the way up to, I don't even remember which season it was at this point where they killed Jon Snow. I think it was the end of the fifth. Fifth, and then the sixth season, there was the Battle of the Bastards at the end of the sixth season. Yeah, so that was the end of the fifth.
So yes, that is actually where I was going with that, is that, okay, so you can't have things that just serve the story. But then you bring in this other force, the Lord of Light?
Yes.
The Lord of Light.
Lord of Light.
So clearly he has a plan. It was...
Theoretically.
Supposedly.
The prophecy. The prince who was promised.
So he's been making the choice to bring back, I don't even remember the guy's name, who supposedly got brought back 6 or 7 times to serve his purpose.
Oh, yes, Beric Dondarrion.
Yeah, he keeps bringing him back until he serves his purpose.
Yeah.
So he chose to bring Jon back. Why? Purpose did Jon serve?
That's
at the
exactly
end of the day?
where I was headed. Yeah. So, because after that, what does Jon do? Let's just examine this for a second. What does Jon do after he gets killed?
Because this is one example where having something happen to serve the story actually makes sense, because the Lord of Light has this plan for these people. What did Jon do? Why did he bring him back? Are we supposed to think that it's still to come in the future? Or was it to just kill Daenerys, maybe?
They assassinated
I guess that's
his
the
character.
only thing I can think of that would make sense.
If that's what they want to go with, that I find that to be awfully sloppy and virtually meaningless. Not that you need to have a deeper meaning in everything, but at least, there's so much talk about prophecy, this, prophecy, that, and then to just go through all of that, and then, I guess the only purpose that your life served after I brought you back is to destroy Daenerys Targaryen. It seems like you would need to connect those lines a little bit more. If there was anything to connect those two things that happened to each other, then maybe I could get behind that. Maybe. In fact, I could. I know I could get behind that if it had been written in such a way that there would have been any kind of impact between those two events.
Right.
But there wasn't. There was no mention of the Lord of Light. In fact, after the long night, the episode afterward, the Onion Knight. What the heck is the Onion Knight's name? He's like my favorite character. I can't think of his name. Davos. Okay. He goes so far as to say, well, we fight the Lord of Light's war and we win, and now what? And so it's like they're outright dismissive of that as a whole. So that doesn't seem reasonable that would have been the reason why they brought Jon Snow back.
No, it does not.
In fact, they're outright dismissive of it. So that doesn't quite seem right to me. But so I also feel like I should, because I don't remember if I talked to you about this earlier or not, but I should get your read on Clegane Bowl.
I didn't care.
The Hound versus the Mountain.
That's really all. I did not care
I didn't either.
at all.
In fact, I thought it was terrible.
I couldn't figure out why I should care. The mountain is essentially dead.
Yeah, he's not a person.
He's not a person. He apparently had some
sort of
vague
imprint
sense of what he used to be, but he died as far as I was concerned, and now he's just a big brute who, in the end, didn't do anything. He served no purpose. I mean, apparently all these undead-ish guys that were brought back to protect Cersei unconditionally were just pushovers. I mean, the Hound just killed all of them except for his brother easily, and then he ended up killing his brother too. So
Yeah.
that seems like a plot thread that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. And that's another character that the Hound died, right? And that's fine.
Right.
But in my view, the Hound died much earlier. Like,
Yeah, I assumed he was
in
dead
the
before.
fourth season or fifth season, whichever season. I think it was after the Red Wedding. I think it was the fourth season. And near the end of the fourth season, he is confronted by Brienne, and she manages to beat him off of a...
Yeah, she does.
Sorry, that's not appropriate. she manages to beat the ever-living snot out of him. Sort of. She actually doesn't. She gets her ass pretty well handed to her as well. She just manages to kick him right off the side of a cliff, and it doesn't go well for him. And it's at that moment, and that's a beautiful moment with him and Arya. He's just basically given up at that point. He is at rock bottom, both figuratively and literally. And it's a great moment. It's heartbreaking because at that point you've been exposed to this person who has got really a tortured past, and you've gotten to be somewhat sympathetic to him. And then by the time you find out that he actually has survived, which I was not really expecting, he's virtually changed. Or at least he's trying to change. He's trying to, and it shows real strength and growth in character, and I like that. And that was good. And he finds a new purpose in his life. I really like that as well when he gets back into the Brotherhood Without Banners. The guys, Beric Dondarrion and the priest guy who keeps bringing him back from the dead and all that. And that's really good. And he has several moments when he's traveling with those guys that shows that he is no longer this vengeful, hateful person. And then what do we get at the end? We get a vengeful, hateful person who just can't help it.
Has to go kill his brother, I
For
guess.
no reason.
He
For
would have
no
died
reason.
anyway. He could have just
jeez.
lived.
Yeah. So that's another... it wasn't quite as bad of an assassination as Jaime Lannister's character, but
That was the worst.
close.
Pretty close.
Pretty close. And I guess he was supposed to help Arya find her humanity in that final exchange, I guess. It was sloppy writing. What it amounts to. It's sloppy writing. So it was just no good. It was just
Yeah, the satisfying end for him would have been for him to just go live his life.
let it go.
Let it go.
Yeah.
I don't need to go kill my brother. He's already essentially dead, and he knew that.
Yeah. They could have given him a meaningful end which would have been an obscure end. You know,
Yeah.
that would have been more meaningful for him to literally ride off into the sunset.
Yeah. Or better yet, okay, he still could have been there. Maybe he was going off to make sure Arya survived.
That could
he
be.
could have been
Yeah.
following her.
Yep.
There are so many routes he could have taken. And then he could have seen his brother and chose not to fight him. That would have been an actual good ending to
that
his
would have
arc.
that would have been a big deal. That would have been a big deal. And
Yeah.
that would have been very interesting. And that, I think, like for you and me, that may not have subverted our expectations, but I think that it would have subverted many fans' expectations because
Yeah.
they were expecting to see Clegane Bowl. And the fact that Clegane Bowl is a term, I think, is deeply disturbing and depressing.
It's funny, I actually hadn't heard that until like after the episode aired.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd been hearing that.
I hadn't heard it before that.
Yeah.
Or if I did, I didn't know what it was about because I didn't know what their last names were.
Yeah. So,
I don't remember names well.
yeah. So, Bran the Broken.
There's another good one.
So, I have very little problem with Bran the Broken being king. In fact, in many ways it does make sense. But the way that his journey was portrayed made him seem like he's possibly evil.
I could see that.
Yeah. Like even right at the very end when he kind of smirks and says, "Oh, well, why do you think I traveled all this way?" "Ho, ho, ho, ho. I knew you were going to do this the whole time." Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. And that he kind of explained that he saw where this was going.
Not very well.
I thought the point was that he didn't want it.
Right.
And that's what makes a good king, is what people were saying.
Right,
Is
but-
that you're not supposed to want it. But apparently he did everything to make sure that he would become king.
Right. Sorry, that was clipping badly. I should probably turn that down. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, so I just found that very, it was just an unfortunate thing that immediately came to my mind when that choice was made. It's like they several different characters had made the point that the right person to sit on the throne is the person who doesn't want it. But apparently Bran did want it.
It seems like
He
it.
orchestrated this.
Yeah.
He made that clear.
Yeah.
And
So-
maybe you could have made the point that, yeah, I did orchestrate. I don't want this, but I can see that I'm the right person for the job.
Yeah.
But they didn't really make that point. All
No.
you got was him making his awkward little smirks at the camera.
Oh,
which, yeah, really makes it seem like he's actually an evil bastard.
could be a little more suspicious, I suspect.
Which,
Because then what was the point of him being there to help kill the Night King? You know, did he know that all of these people were going to die? I mean, this was not like Doctor Strange's master plan at the end of Infinity
Right.
War, where he saw all of these millions upon millions or whatever ways that this was going to go, and this was the only way to make it turn out the right way or whatever the case
yeah,
is.
the best possible outcome
Yeah,
of those 2 million whatever.
yeah. So
But Bran doesn't have that power. I honestly don't really understand his power. I thought he could just see the past and then warg into animals.
And in the books, it's a lot more clearly defined as to what he can do. And what's interesting is that he's, in the books, he's deeply connected to the weirwood trees. And as you get further south in Westeros, there are fewer and fewer weirwood trees. So he has a lot less influence the further south you go. So
Sure.
it doesn't really make sense when, again, without the context of the book, the show is just going to be different, period. And so you kind of just have to get over that. I mean, I have to get over that since you haven't read the books, but so I just have to get over that. But it's just a different kind of thing. I don't know. It felt very strange. It felt like he knew more than he was letting on at all times, and he never told anybody anything that was very useful.
Yeah, I couldn't even honestly say what he did that influenced anything.
Aside from just step aside.
Yeah, aside from letting things take their natural course, if he had some plan, what did he do to make it happen?
Mm-hmm. And maybe he didn't have a plan. Maybe that was just a throwaway line. Oh, why do you think I came all this way? But it sure as hell seemed like he knew this was coming.
Yeah, they heavily implied that he had this kind of master plan in the works, and maybe he was just saying the right thing at the right time to make it happen, but I didn't see anything he ever said have an effect on anything, except I guess that he said he was going to be bait for the Night King. I don't remember what he said in that scene. Mm-hmm. Which, as far as I can tell, the only thing that affected is that a lot of people died who probably wouldn't have had to die otherwise if they had approached that battle differently.
Oh, except for all the actors who had a contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't die, even though they were constantly and frequently overwhelmed. For more on that, feel free to check out Mahler's video.
Yeah.
He gets pretty upset about it, and rightly so, I might add.
Yeah,
I think he's perfectly legitimate in those concerns. So.
That was another really terrible outcome of that whole episode was how many people actually lived.
Yeah.
Honestly, why
so
would they
many
portray it in a way that makes it look like pretty much everyone died, and then apparently there's still a big army there?
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense.
Like, if there was ever an opportunity to kill off half the cast of a show, that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have made sense for just about everybody to die there. I mean, like, why are the Starks so special? The only Starks that got killed were the two parents, and then Robb. Well, I guess Rickon Stark got killed in the show. He's not dead, at least not yet in the books. So I don't know what makes the other ones so special. I mean, I guess Arya's got plot armor, so she gets to live on and become Dora the Explorer, and that's exciting for her.
Yeah, right.
Sansa gets to be Queen of the North because reasons.
There's another one. Sansa. I think she's a terrible character.
I think she's a terrible character as well.
I do not understand why she went through some terrible things.
Yep.
Why is that supposed to make her
Yes.
a good ruler?
As a 20-year-old girl, how on earth is she supposed to all of a sudden, because she's been through some bad experiences, now how is she supposed to outsmart fucking Littlefinger?
Yeah, she never actually did anything smart in the show other than apparently outsmart Littlefinger. But really, when it comes right down to it, she was just attractive enough that he was enamored with her. That's her big accomplishment in the show.
For looking kind of like her mom and being attractive.
Yeah, for being attractive.
Woo!
Good job. You
Yep.
deserve to be king now.
Such a strong female
queen.
character.
Right. Yeah, and that's it. She never made any smart decisions at any point.
Yeah.
She abused Littlefinger's attraction to her.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. And even that, like there again, in the Ocean's movies where you kind of see everything doesn't necessarily go to plan. Sometimes you think things are not going to plan. It turns out that is part of the plan and some of that kind of stuff. All of a sudden at the end of, that was season 6, I think, when they kill Littlefinger. And it's like the only reason they killed him is because they were looking for another character to kill off because they needed to kill off a character, because that's what the show does, is kill off main characters.
Yes, sir.
But they killed him off in the most profoundly stupid way possible.
Yeah, it was
It
bad.
made no sense. It made no sense. And Littlefinger is still alive in the books. Just saying. Just saying.
That's good.
Yeah. And other characters who got not enough screen time late seasons, because, and I am a firm believer it's because they ran out of source material directly from George R.R. Martin. Varys. Another complete waste of a character past season 4. Mm-hmm. So, well, my phone is ringing.
Oh, it is.
And we're also out of beer. So we're going to pause right there.
We can talk about this another time.
We'll be right back. And we're back. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. But we did have a chance to talk a little bit more. And you know what? That's probably enough Game of Thrones talk.
That's plenty for now. It was pretty unspecific, this conversation.
Yeah.
We went through a lot of things and got our thoughts out there, but
we could go on.
that's
and
just
on
it.
and
There's no
on
end
and
to
on.
this type of discussion.
No, there is no end. There is no end. Anyway, so thanks for watching. We will almost certainly return to Game of Thrones as a topic, probably in a little more specific way. Maybe I'll even get this guy to read the book someday.
Someday,
We'll
I
see.
probably only if they end.
Yeah, if they end. Yeah,
Apparently,
apparently
20
there's
years.
I think George R. Martin has committed, or has sort of, kind of, almost committed, in the most roundabout and non-committal sort of way to finishing A Winds of Winter, or the Winds of Winter. Yeah, the Winds of Winter. The Winds of Winter in 2020, which is now fast approaching. So we shall see. Then he has at least one more book to go after that. So we shall see. And hopefully they are better than what we got with the show.
Can only hope.
So my condolences to the cast and crew. You were not treated well. Well, you were probably treated well, at least when you were working. But your characters, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So with that, I'm out of beer.
Same.
So is Jake. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.